Because of its population growth, the highest in the world, Africa has a population that increased from 230 million in 1950 to more than 1,200 million in 2015. This figure is expected to double by 2050, accompanied by a considerable increase in the proportion of young Africans under 25, who already make up 60% of the continent's inhabitants, which represents a demographic dividend opportunity, but also a risk of aggravation of the recurrent challenges facing the continent, such as unemployment, insecurity, and terrorism. In its Agenda 2063, the African Union aspires to the social and economic development of the continent by relying on the potential of its population, a vision whose realization reached a first step in January 2017 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with the adoption of the African Union Roadmap for the realization of the demographic dividend.
Africa is essentially young. If I take, for example, the case of Niger, more than 75% of Nigerians are under 25 years old, so it is the overwhelming majority of the population. It is quite normal for the African Union to this summit, because youth is the engine of economic and social development. Youth is the future of the continent. The African Union cannot justify its existence if its actions do not have any impact on the living conditions of these populations, especially the most vulnerable. I'm delighted with the 2017 theme, taking advantage of the demographic dividend by investing in youth. This is a timely theme that challenges us all, and we policymakers, economic operators, and investors must now be creative in making the necessary decisions and mobilizing the necessary investments for our youth, the first victim of this social time bomb that continues to grow day after day.
When I visit a country, and I'm talking to that country about family planning programs, the first thing I ask is, do you have a budget line for family planning? If you don't have a budget line for family planning, you've not started. We cannot and should not, as Africans, wait until somebody else comes to pay for family planning and essential services for women and girls. That is essential service. That's essential service for our people. I want to suggest that going forward, all of us must insist that our government pay for the services to save the lives of our women and girls. The greatest threat to a realization of the dividend is lack of investment. If you don't invest, you don't get anything. I mean, we can all talk about it, as we've talked about it, but there are key specific investments that have to be made. Education, particularly for the girl child, contraception, family planning, and the health services that they must go to get those services. Ability to be able to do entrepreneurship training, vocational training, ability to access credit, to do startups.
By placing the year 2017 under the theme Harnessing Africa's Demographic Dividend by Investing in Youth, African leaders expressed their commitment to accelerate progress in 4 key sectors: health, education, access to employment, and good governance. An essential actor in demographic issues, the UNFPA, the United Nations Population Fund, has worked throughout 2017 to mobilize around the issue of the demographic dividend and the effective implementation of the African Union route to it.
La partie la plus difficile est derrière nous. C'est vraiment les concertations, les consultations.
The most difficult part is behind us. It is really about the consultations, dialogues that have an agreement on everything. We have roadmaps. We know how to carry out a number of reforms, and in many countries, these reforms are very well underway. The appropriate policies are being set. The programs are working. We have mobilized the actors. The contracts are with civil society. So I believe that today we are on the right track. We must simply ensure that there are stoppage on the resource and that countries are already preparing for the next phase of the project and also for the replication of the project in other parts of the world. I'm confident because the different stakeholders are satisfied and we do not change a winning team.
Des progrès que nous avons faits, donc je crois qu'on ne change pas une équipe qui gagne.
In the Muslim-majority Sahelian countries, high fertility rates and low contraceptive prevalence are often attributed to religious or cultural burdens, combined with a glaring lack of access to information on modern contraceptive methods. To strengthen efforts to reduce maternal mortality by investing more in access to modern contraceptive methods, the UNFPA has sought to integrate traditional and religious leaders in the demographic transition process by organizing a demographic dividend, an Islam symposium held in August 2017 in Chad, in N'Djamena.
Là où on utilise des thèmes techniques un peu compliqués comme
when they use somewhat complicated technical terms such as the demographic dividend, the transition, we use simple terms to tell people not to complicate things and to tell them that the demographic dividend is an approach to fight against unemployment in the interest of our young people, in the interest of women and men. If we manage to convince them to go through the different stages, to meet the different challenges, we as religious leaders will learn together. The sweat trains us first to better understand the issue before reporting to our people in order to avoid mistakes that will be difficult to fix then if it happens.
As part of the resolution of the development challenges, the First Ladies of the 6 countries of the SWID, the Sahelian Women Empowerment and Demographic Dividend Project, also affirmed their commitment by launching a regional media campaign for social and behavioral change. In Abidjan, the Ivorian economic capital, they mobilized the authorities of the SWID countries, namely Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, Chad, and Côte d'Ivoire, to sensitize the different targets on the themes of the SWID. The empowerment of adolescents and girls is one of the essential links to achieve the demographic dividend. Young adolescent girls are the most vulnerable and too often face barriers related to our customs and traditions. Our governments and technical, social, and financial partners are tirelessly investing in birth control through birth spacing, girls' education, and the fight against early marriages. However, the birth rate in our countries is still galloping, and teenage girls make a strong contribution to the fertility of our country. Our role has been to accelerate the decline in fertility, have access to family planning and increase the age of first marriage, invest in public health to reduce child mortality, and improve health systems, improve access to girls' education, empower women and promote gender equality, strengthen economic prospects through job creation, flexibility of the labor market, openness to foreign trade, savings and investment, and improving governance. While mobilization for young people in both sexes is gaining momentum in Africa, it is also essential to identify the forms of support that could promote their empowerment. This is how the UNFPA joined the 4th edition of the Rebranding Africa Forum held in Brussels, in Belgium, around the African private sector.
Je pense que le secteur privé local a un rôle important.
I think the local private sector has a role to increase, to amplify ongoing efforts. It is a financing aspect, but we know that the private sector is also a source of experience, a source of knowledge, therefore a source of what is called know-how, which can have an incredible impact as we scale up. I think the issue of partnership with the private sector is not a partnership where you have to put money on the table. I think that it has a wide range of possibilities that the private sector offers and that we must absolutely grasp to speed up the process of capturing the demographic dividend.
On all the UNFPA agendas, the 2017 was marked by the brutal disappearance of Dr. Babatunde Osotimehin, Executive Director of the UNFPA in the course of his tenure. This happened on the night of June 4th to 5th at his home in New York. A tribute was paid to him throughout Africa and in the world. The successor to Nigeria's Babatunde Osotimehin will be the Panamanian Natalia Kanem, previously Deputy Executive Director of the UNFPA. She made her first public appearance in an event dedicated to Africa on the association of the last Rebranding Africa Forum in Brussels.
For UNFPA, it was very good to see that these partnerships of investing in young people towards the demographic dividend are paying off. We met young entrepreneurs who formed their business to help solve community problems and give jobs to each other. It was creative, it was exciting to see what is being done by Africans for Africans. The last thing I'd like to say is that UNFPA is very committed to making sure that not a single mother dies during childbirth. And in Africa, a lot of the people who die in childbirth are not women, they're actually girls, they're adolescent girls. This is why we're so very, very committed to making sure that important life-saving information is given to all of our children. We want them to be happy, we want them to be healthy, we want them to finish their schooling, we want them to be able to be productive. And sexual and reproductive health and their rights is a very important part of that. So for us, being able to partner with all of you has been a signal that we're on the right track.
Beyond the mobilization of decision makers and leaders of the continent, the year 2017 was also marked by the mobilization of young people whose capacity building and empowerment should make them actors of today before to be the leaders of the future.
Most important thing after this is that after we develop our work plan, we need to make it work. And I think then it puts the responsibility of us as young people to be accountable to ourselves and say that for the things that we have written down and said we will finish by this time, we should have finished. So, because we are the same people who would get into government in the next God knows how many years. So if I am complaining about how my government is behaving and I'm doing the same now, then there's a big problem. So I think that accountability will be measured by the time we end this conference.
Il faut pas que nous nous asseyions pour attendre. Il faut qu'on arrête.
We must not sit down to wait. We must stop always taking ourselves as victims. It is a war that we must launch, and this war we must embody is not by violence, not by claims, but rather by actions. If we say that there are decision makers who have passed by, it is not by force, but by actions we took upon ourselves. We have to show that there is a new generation trying to emerge. And for those who have heard of the demographic dividend, I will tell them to be optimistic, to believe in it, and to tell them that it is an opportunity. We have to grasp it by becoming more involved and above all by being actors, not only beneficiaries, but actors of the capture of the demographic dividend.
The year 2018 will undoubtedly be an opportunity for the UNFPA to scale up, to develop and consolidate the synergy of actions with young people, religious and traditional leaders.